future's never certain.
Heliopolis, meaning City of the Sun, was an ancient Egyptian religious center near modern Cairo. It was a central religious site for the sun god Ra, and it was key for theology and astronomy, considered to be the place where creation began. It's also the nickname Ernest Littlefield gave the meeting place for the library of the four great races in The Torment of Tantalus. We've been developing at Dial the Gate our own version of Heliopolis, a knowledge companion. It's designed to let you explore the Stargate universe in an interactive way, ask questions, and uncover material that collectors have been preserving for years. It's an ambitious project, and we could use some help. So if you know how to build rich, media-driven web experiences, if retrieval augmented generation means something to you, because it certainly doesn't to me, I'm just reading the script from Ian, or if you have hands-on experience with hybrid search or knowledge graphs, reach out to me at dialthegateshow@gmail.com, and I will put you in touch with Ian and Martin on our back end who are building this thing. We will be very grateful for your help. Welcome to episode 392 of Dial the Gate, the Stargate Oral History Project. I'm David Reed. I appreciate you joining me for this episode. Joe Flanigan, Colonel John Sheppard. Here he be. How are you,
Here
sir?
he be. I'm good. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
yes, I am surviving the zombie apocalypse.
God. Well, it's good to see you.
And I'm not a taxidermied animal yet on somebody's shelf, and that's good news.
Well, something to look forward to, right?
Yes.
Hopefully a good view from wherever they perch you.
Yeah.
I had you on the second day I started this thing.
Oh wait, hey, let me just say something. I've got this on live stream, and we're already plugging up to, we just passed 100 here. Can you put anything on the screen that says dial in or?
For folks that are, I don't know how. So are you rebroadcasting me? How's that working on your side?
I don't know. I just hit live stream and it's like looking at it like this.
Oh, okay.
So you're coming through my Instagram live stream feed.
Oh, okay, sweet. Well,
so if you want to put your little moniker on, you can.
Okay. I can just youtube.com/dialthegate is where folks can go. So I have to go into the back end and update all that, and it wouldn't let it would take forever to do it. So I appreciate it though, man. We are nearly at 400 episodes on this thing, and there is so much Stargate buzz. I want to get to the new show in just a moment here, but honestly, what I want to start off with, the fires in California were about a year ago now.
Correct. Yeah.
The Pacific Palisades one, is that the name of them? Is that what we call them? Or is that
the Palisades fire? Yeah, I think part of Malibu is included in the Palisades fire now.
Okay.
Because it all started from that place. And then there's the Eaton fire, which is the Altadena area.
Okay. Was that the one that your home was involved in?
No, my home was burned in the one 5 years earlier. Which is called the Woolsey Fire. So you got to we need an encyclopedia of natural disasters here in California. Mine was the Woolsey Fire, and it was pretty darn big. This one was also awfully big. This one was a little more core, like in population dense areas. So let me give you an idea. In Altadena, I have a sister who has two separate daughters that are my nieces, separately married with kids. All three of them lost houses. So that's three houses in one family. Um, and so we're talking about an incredible dislocation that a lot of people don't. It's hard for people to imagine. Maybe people who deal with tornadoes in the Midwest and stuff like that, they can understand it. But beyond that, I think it's past people's capacity to measure.
Mm-hmm.
But it's pretty difficult. And I likened the fires. Now, some people may agree or disagree, but a lot of people, I've gotten a lot of feedback. I said that a fire destroying your house is a little on the meter of tragedies. It's not quite there. What it is, it's in this kind of deeply inconvenient, annoying area. The tragedies are losing heirlooms and family connections for sure. Everything else is replaceable. But you'll see that you're not running from a war zone. You know, you're dealing with a deeply inconvenient situation in a highly developed world. And so I try to keep perspective on that.
Right.
But you know, it's a totally new experience. Everybody handles it completely differently. So
Yeah.
yeah.
My family's lost property in Hurricane Ivan in Florida in I think 2004. I have this photograph on my wall of a palm tree in our place behind it, and after Ivan, everything in that photo was leveled. So it's just kind of, but thankfully we didn't really lose really anything specific. But what I bring this up about is I remember you putting out your message to folks who were dealing with this a year ago now, and what stuck with me, and it's stuck with me ever since, is you mentioned the fact that, look, if you're reading this, it's okay. You know, that's the important thing is that you can read this, that you didn't get taken out with it. And the other thing is that you might be surprised just how like how lighter weight you feel like after this has happened, you know. And I just remember watching the,
Not having to clean out your
well,
crowded garage or
everything
I think
resets
I know what you're
for
saying.
you. And it
What
was
I was
just
really
so
getting
cool,
at,
that message.
yeah. Well, what I was getting at was this kind of odd silver lining of gratitude that creeps in. And, you know, difficult things happen, and we often assign it to the difficult thing category. But what comes with it is a lot of other stuff that's far more complex to file. One of them is just gratitude. And I was saying I was grateful to have lived in that house, grateful that I'm still alive, grateful that just to witness so many people trying to help me. And so you become this odd passenger on a trip that you have no control over. And the gratitude, for me, it was impossible to escape. I couldn't push the gratitude away. I felt immense gratitude. I think that's the thing that a lot of people responded to the most on that post. And by the way, it was odd because I posted that, and for months I would be in totally different parts of town, and people would stop me, and it wasn't for Stargate. They were stopping me because they said I watched your fire video and it was very helpful. I was trying to give them tangible advice on what to do, and also just kind of the emotional terrain that's they're going to experience. And it seemed to be helpful, which I was really surprised, and I'm glad. I, you know, was unexpectedly successful in translating that message.
It
Um,
was just when things are raw, and you cannot uh you cannot misinterpret sincere, you know, because people, when they need to hear a certain thing, they'll be ready to hear it. And I think they were then. And I, who just knew folks like David DeLuise, who had
yeah,
dealt with it, I mean, that it it was what needed to be heard at the time
yeah.
that people needed to hear it. So it's really cool. Mhm.
Yeah. Oh, there were a lot of actors who lost their houses in this last fire. Yeah. So they were also able to reach out to people. Terry Ellis is a friend of mine. He lost his house. And, I knew people who had moved away from Malibu to the Palisades specifically to escape the fires, only to have their houses burned in the Palisades. You can't escape it. What I find it remarkable, and you're going to notice I do something. I tend to take a specific event and extrapolate it to a larger thing, often at my own detriment. People often say I depersonalize like topics, but for people to sit here and to say there's not global warming when the fires are super fires, they're fires that we have not experienced before. Mm-hmm. And if I'm not mistaken, and I could be wrong about the statistic, but it's pretty darn close. It's something like 7 out of the most 10 devastating fires of all time in California have occurred in like the last 10 or 12 years. Wow. So you have to ask yourself that. Now, there are elements to that you have to be aware of. One is the expansion of where people live. True.
Yeah.
There's more people living in more rural areas, 100%. But you get rid of all that stuff. You're talking about extreme weather events. And if people don't believe me, talk to the people, the insurance companies who write the actuarials. They'll tell you we're dealing with a different animal here. So I find it sad that we're here. I told you I got a big thing. We're here completely sidetracked with this horse shit circus going on in Washington. And we don't even discuss environmental issues anymore. Not only that, there's almost a arrogant pride in dismantling any, environmental policies that have been put into place. And it's sad to me. It's sad to me that we're now ensconced in a really shitty high school drama and we're not being mature. It's almost like we stopped being a serious country, and it makes me sad. But we could have been leaders on this, and we decided to step away and being brats. We decided to step away and be spoiled brats. And so now the rest of the world, maybe they fill in that vacuum. We'll see. But climate change is a deal. And by the way, I say this to go back to the issue. People in California can't get fire insurance. They cannot get fire insurance. I mean, this is crazy. And we have a homeless problem and a housing crisis, and you can't get fire insurance. None of these issues are being addressed. And so it all stews. If one is astute enough to look at things, they'll realize that everything is connected. And, I wish we'd all just wake up and sort of pull our collective head out of our asses and start looking at things more wisely, and be aware that a fire like this will happen again, probably very soon. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
man.
Blah, blah, blah.
You're fine.
I know.
The next Stargate series is in development. And how did you find out? And what are your thoughts?
Well, it's very interesting.
Yeah.
So I'd been talking to Momoa for a little while about various other things, but I told him, I said, you and I should get control of the Stargate franchise again. And he was like, I don't want to do it. I get too much on my plate. I don't want to do it. I go, just hear me out. The fans love it. It's one of your original shows. You don't have to do anything. We'll do everything, blah, blah, blah. Amazon would be very happy to work with you. And I
so
knew
this is recently, like the past couple of years?
Very recently.
Okay.
I said, if with your name on it, and we're attached as producers, I'll do all the heavy lifting. Well, that was about 7 to 10 days later. There was an announcement in the press that they had rebooted Stargate. So I told him, I said, well, we're a day late and $1 short. And apparently they had been in talks with this group for like a year. And that's fine. Honestly, Jason did not want to do it. I think I wanted to get it produced. And so I got a call, and, you know, it was funny because those probably are many of the same people I would have reached out to help resurrect the franchise. As it is, they're going to do it. And they told me that it's all hush hush and so forth. I'm glad that I hope the audience, finally gets what it wants, which is a reboot. I don't think any of us are, well, I don't think I'm involved. I think I would know by now if I was. And so, but then who knows? Maybe my character shows up every now and then, or maybe I show up occasionally. I have no idea. But I know quite certainly that I'm certainly not going to be a regular cast member on that show. So
yeah, there were a number of folks who were hoping for General Sheppard. So, do you see him as being promoted to general? Do you see that as a path for him potentially?
No, yeah. I see him as institutionally anti-institutional.
Well, there's a little bit of maverick in the guy.
Yeah, I don't see him being bequeathed with high levels of responsibility, because I don't think he's capable of carrying the dogma necessary for that. Yeah. So no, and I don't think that's a big deal. Who knows? He could be retired and be like a carpenter. For all I know.
I don't see a guy like him quitting. I mean, maybe if the right circumstances came along, but someone like that would have a real hard time just walking away.
Personally, in my head, I think what a good storyline would have been if he comes back in any way, shape, and form is that they bring back characters, but I think the great character arc is, say he isn't in the military anymore. He's retired and he's like a test pilot or something that has a bit of a drinking problem or something, and is not necessarily at the top of his game. And then getting hooked up with the team again might force him to step away from his demons and whatever. That would be kind of an interesting arc. I don't know if that's anything they're going to do. Who knows? Martin Garrow called me and he said, why don't you drop by the writer's room here in LA? So I think I'm going to on Wednesday, but there's a lot of NDAs involved in that. So don't expect me to be able to give you any information.
Unless it's from the man himself, I actually don't want it. I'm in a much different place now than I was with Gate World and spoilers so long ago. They have a story to share. Why would you want to unwrap it before Christmas? There's just something not right about that. But yeah. I mean, I am sorry to hear that you don't. That you cannot. I'm sorry that you cannot say that I cannot talk about it. That's what I'm trying to get at. So, but at the same time, you could be playing 3D chess with me. So, I mean, I'm just going to kind of give you that one because there's so much potential
I love that
in
you
this
think
show.
I'm smart enough to play 3D chess, let alone 2D chess.
I wouldn't put it past you.
Well,
you worked in Washington.
I wish that I knew something to hide. Yeah. I really don't. There's a lot of other things that, we're all doing in our lives.
Yeah. And
I always have known that, what happened with Stargate and Stargate Atlantis was a sort of an unusual thing, which it doesn't always happen in Hollywood, which is it was an odd combination of quirky elements coming together in this kind of incongruity to throw a show out, and that includes Stargate and Stargate Atlantis, that was just off center enough that made people want to watch and then get hooked to. And the problem with the process here in Hollywood is that the process is so highly vetted and so highly formalized, and it's run by test groups, and they do everything they can to mitigate every potential risk they will ever have. And in the process, they hand you milk toast, they hand you pablum, they hand you shit. And it's just boring as hell because they figured out how not to offend anybody. And they end up giving you crap. So hopefully they'll avoid that stuff and take some risks and not be overly concerned with making everybody happy. I think that's one of the biggest mistakes showrunners can make. And by the way, they're with Amazon now. It's not, when we were at MGM was not that big. It had downsized to something so rudimentary that, if I'm not mistaken, I heard at one point we were the only active production at MGM at one point. Wow. So that gives you an idea of how small it got. Now you're talking about Amazon, which is an absolute behemoth, one of the largest companies in the world, certainly one of the largest production companies ever. And so I don't know what the parameters are for people like them. I have no idea.
Let's speak to the parameters of what this IP is from what you remember about participating in it. What does SG4, that's what I call it, need to do, in your mind, to be a true success? What before? I mean, you got flour, eggs, and water to bake a cake. What do you need? What are the raw ingredients that need to go into this fourth one at this point in time for us now, for it to be a success, in your opinion? As you know, as playing Sheppard, I mean, what would you expect? Like, I'll sit down and I will watch that.
Well, I'll tell you this. And this may come off as self-interested, but if you're asking me, and nobody is, what my advice would be, what advice I would give to people doing the new show, I would be really, really passionate about saying, and this sounds self-interested, but bring back as many old characters you can from Stargate and Stargate Atlantis to launch this thing. The mistake they made with Universe was they completely amputated us and decided to start a new show that then no longer had our support. We were off the air, so we couldn't do a lot of, crossovers. And also they wanted to have something far more serious and less, I think they wanted to get away from the self-deprecating, playful nature of the Stargate franchise into something more Battlestar Galactic and more serious and gritty and this and that. And that's fine. I think that's a different show. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I think one of the most clever aspects of Stargate is its recognition of its own particular limits. And that wink of the eye and that self-deprecation, that playfulness. And I have always said this. I will give Richard Dean Anderson a lot of credit because that guy stepped into the role and didn't play it at all like the Kurt Russell character. So much so you didn't even recognize there was a connection between the two characters. And you're also wondering sometimes you're watching like, what is he doing? I have no idea what he's doing. Is he disconnected or is he uber connected? I don't know what it is. He made people watch, and he bent the show into a weird direction, maybe on purpose, maybe by accident. I have no idea. And that quirkiness is what really got its claws into and create a fan base. And that quirkiness, I think, continued in Atlantis. And that quirkiness, I think they amputated it in Stargate Universe, which is too bad because those actors are all superb actors on Stargate Atlantis, Universe. And I think they didn't get the type of support that Atlantis got. We got a lot of support.
It's a frustrating situation because Stargate Productions was not necessarily, were they to do exactly what they wanted, you would have gone on to do Stargate Extinction pretty quickly. So there would have been no reason for crossover into season 1 of Universe because you guys would have been busy with that, and a little bit the anticipation was for Atlantis to go and do a DVD movie. And so that's where Atlantis was going to live on. And then that didn't happen. And so the result now
I love when you say DVD, I almost feel like we might as well do a silent film. That's how archaic that sounds, DVD.
Well, from our perspective
But,
now,
but
Arc of Truth and Continuum made a ton of money. And MGM was like, yes, we needed a ton of money. And the guys were like, okay, so we're ready to do more of that. They're like, no, we're seeing it's cooling down. We're not going to, like, what? We've got Revolutions. We've got Extinction. We've got ready to go.
Yeah.
Is Atlantis on the moon? Is it still sitting there in the bay, blocking water traffic? I mean, what the hell? So there's a lot left undone. And I'm really interested to see how they're going to navigate that in the new show, being 14, 15 years removed from what happened with the universe, 16, 17 removed with you guys. Right. Is it going to be mentioned in dialogue? Are they just going to completely ignore it until they have the ability to say, okay, this was successful. Now let's go make another one and let's answer them in that one. But I really think this needs to be at least 51%
I think that would be a very smart thing for Amazon to do, which is pick up where they left off and do the 2 movies that they were committed to doing that at least resolve the show. And whether that bleeds over into the new show or not, I don't know. That's up to them. But everybody, I mean, at this point, Momoa and I have traveled all over the world signing autographs for this show. And I think we have heard repeatedly, like, what happened? How did it end? It didn't end. I don't know. Why did it? And I think a lot of them are angry. They're like, we could have gone another 5 years. I'm like, yeah, fine. But at least we could have gone a couple more episodes and explain what the hell happened. So, it'll be interesting to see what they do. I think I have always said, way back when I was interested in the franchise, that there is no reason Stargate could not be as powerful as Star Trek. There's no reason. It has all the mythological parameters to expand. It can go different. Star Trek was just very, very, well, for one, it has a brand recognition that you can't deny, but it has a very, very astute and savvy business plan, which is throw something out there. That one's a little dark. That one's a little funnier. But it's not so different that they don't all connect. And so Star Trek was clever. And I just thought to myself, what in God's name are they letting that collect dust for? And that was more of a structural issue with MGM going bankrupt and so forth. So now that it's landed in Amazon, let's see what happens. I know the people in Amazon are, let's just say they're interested in making money. So I doubt they're going to want it to sit there and collect dust.
Well, we were beginning to think they were after all this time. It's like, well, guys, maybe it's just time to cut bait because the fish aren't biting. But I was thrilled. I think, thrilled.
So
what do you think?
So anyway, that was my suggestion is to do that, and then my other suggestion is to I don't know. Hopefully, to have enough screen tests or table reads or what have you to start seeing some chemistry between characters. The chemistry between characters is so critical, and it's so absent sometimes in shows because they go into a hole and they go, we want that person. He looks perfect. He plays that character perfectly. That girl is perfect. She plays her character. Now let's put them together. And then they have no connection.
Exactly.
And so you have to, the minute I got, by the way, when I started shooting Stargate, I don't think David Hewlett was even cast yet, if I'm not mistaken.
They were still looking for a Benjamin Ingram, and they couldn't find him. They're like, what about the McKay guy?
I don't remember, but the minute he walked in the set, the minute I started acting with Paul McGillian or David Hewlett, there was an instant chemistry. And it was like, even David Hewlett said, I think I remember him saying something to the effect after the first episode. It's like, somebody goes, "Do you think this will do well?" I had done like 12 pilots, so I was pretty skeptical. He goes, I think this is just odd enough that it might actually succeed. Yeah. Yeah.
Have you heard Paul McGillian's impression of you?
It's so annoying. I don't want to talk like that. He likes to make me as annoying as possible.
Oh, geez. Emma Bentley wanted to know about, did you enjoy your on-screen chemistry with Robert Davi? And I was actually wanting to bring up Robert Davi because we had him on about a year and a half ago, and he loved his character, and he loved the relationship between Sheppard and Kolya on screen. He wanted to come back and do more of that. It's one of my favorite parts of the franchise is that, God, I just want to kill you. But ethically, I just feel like, I think that my boss might have a problem with me just killing you. And then it's a Western ending. So,
yeah. Playing the bad guy is one of the most satisfying things you can ever do. Yeah. And you ask guys like Colm Meaney and Robert Davi and those guys, that playing a bad guy is so enjoyable. The problem with playing the bad guy is often you're vanquished by the good guy. Right. And the bad guys are like, well, I keep my bad guy alive, and so
then you're done.
Yeah, Davi, Colm Meaney, and even the guy who played our Wraith,
Chris Heyerdahl.
Chris is just this supremely talented actor who can fit into different roles. So playing the Wraith, he played different Wraiths. He didn't just play one. But I found that sometimes the good guy is only as good as the bad guy. Awesome. So the stronger the bad guy, the more the hero has to show up. So you know, it's interesting. I don't know how to put it, but a lot of shows, and the way I approach Atlantis, I was super conscious of the choices I was making. I remember not liking certain films that say, or Sylvester Stallone or Arnold Schwarzenegger, in terms of their choices, because their choices were unswerving confidence of the hero. And I'm like, that's cool. You're an iconic character. I get it. There's something cool about it. But it doesn't interest me that much. What interested me, Bruce Willis had a little more like, I hope this works out. And Harrison Ford was like, I don't know if this is going to work. That doubt is so much more interesting to play. And that allows the bad guy to come crawl in and have a presence. And it gives him space to be threatening. When you're, Rambo, everybody's going to show up. A bad guy's going to show up, but you're like, whatever. It doesn't matter how bad the bad guy is. He's just one more bad guy that's going to get vanquished. I think that limits the actors who play bad guys. I think it limits the storytelling. And so having really good bad guys is one of the best things you can do for a show.
Yeah. You can't be 100%. A brick wall. You have to have some depth, I think that's one of the things that I think Stargate does well is it really transfers that Han Solo, Harrison Ford kind of quality, infuses it into the show. Like you, Rick, you guys had swagger. There is a little bit of like, this guy wants to suck the life out of me. For God's sakes, he wants to suck the life out of me. Can we pause and just bring that up? And so you acknowledge that it's like, this is ridiculous. Now I have to take care of business, but this is ridiculous. There's a familiarity.
I have to say that particular choice for certain actors in sci-fi has become, listen, I don't want to say that we influenced anything because I don't know.
Marvel does this all the time.
Well, I was just going to say, my kids all watched Galaxy Quest, or not Galaxy Quest.
That's
also.
Right. Well, that's a lot of
definitely influenced by Galaxy Quest.
Oh, for sure.
But Guardians of the Galaxy, and they said, that guy Chris Pratt is doing what you did in Atlantis. He's doing exactly what you did. And listen, I'm not taking away from his choice. He's a good actor. But I was like, I think it's a good choice on a lot of things. But whether we kind of paved that path or not, I have no idea. I don't want to be cocky enough to think we did. But to me, it's a more interesting choice as an actor.
For sure.
So,
And the
yeah.
fact of the matter is, I think someone mentioned earlier that they've traveled around the world with uh, uh, someone that was really cool in this Irish drinking commercial that you may have heard of, and there's a few people who are interested in more of it. So I think that something was hit on the head there pretty squarely that worked, and we're all thankful for it all the same. Penny Wood wants to know, is there anything about Sheppard that you just adored about that character? And is there anything about Sheppard that you just resented? I'm curious how you would respond to that.
I'm still to this day pretty surprised how little is known about Sheppard and how little backstory was they got into.
Yeah.
But that's okay. I mean, David Hewlett's character McKay is so well done. And his proclivities and his habits are far closer to the writing room than mine. And I think it was much easier to write for David and get into David's backstory. And the truth is, what I do is I come in and I kind of like solve a problem. I don't know how much backstory you need necessarily. But I do wish we had gone into more backstory, because I also wanted to introduce some.
Outcast was good.
But I wanted to introduce like my father and things, because I thought that would be an interesting kind of shadow over the character. But as far as how would I say? As far as the good parts about him, what I liked was that after the first episode aired, really, or after, nobody ever told me how to play the character.
Yeah.
And that's true, I think, with every character on the show. Like, it became clear that we owned the character and we knew, and then the writers could respond accordingly. Funny thing happens on shows. Like I told you, I did a lot of pilots. Writers write something. They're very invested in this character, and they hand you the character, and you're reading it, and you're trying to interpret the character. They're like, no, a little more like this, a little happier, no, a little sadder. And they're trying to mold you into their thing. And it's understandable, but it denies the kind of collaborative nature of this business. And you let an actor step into the role and start making some choices and then write from that point. And so I would encourage them, hopefully, to do that. And let actors own their characters. And, that doesn't always happen. I think a lot of actors are nervous. They want to make everybody happy. Maybe that's good survival instinct, but I don't know that it is, to be honest with you. We had a lot of guest stars who would come up and they would say things like, hey, we had one or two guest stars for every episode. And we did like 100 episodes. So you're talking about a lot of actors that come in and out of this. And they will often, for reasons that I'm not entirely sure, ask me, I guess, because I'm number one on the call sheet, saying, hey, was that good? Do you think it was good? Do you think they like it? And I would say to them, for one, I understood the nervousness, because I've been guest starred and recurring, and sometimes in the absence of feedback, you don't know what's going on. But I've always said to them something that I've never heard in acting class. I don't know, maybe I just made it up, but I go, your job isn't to be good. Everybody's obsessed with good or bad. Forget it. Your job is to not be forgotten. That's it. Don't get forgotten. How you achieve that is up to you. I don't know. Sometimes the storyline in and of itself can take care of it, but very often you're not being given a significant bone of the plot that will secure your character. So you figure out how not to be forgotten. And I know this because I've been on so many other pilots and TV shows. I was on one show for CBS, and it was actually not a bad show. It was Charles Durning and Joe Mantegna, and we had Rockford on it, and I had to play a Supreme Court clerk. And I was like, this could get really boring, and I wasn't getting the amount of lines that I thought was necessary to be remembered. So one, I had to master listening. I do a lot of this. So when the camera turned, I was like, I'm going to give the editor some choices here so he keeps me on the goddamn show. And I have to really figure out how many ways can I look to be listening. Right? And so I was like, cool, get whatever you can. But then also I was like, bow tie. How annoying is a bow tie? I should have a bow tie. They wanted to grease my hair down and comb it back. I go, no.
No, you can't hold the hair back. It's an animal unto itself.
Well, I want to tell you, well, they learned that because we had a very famous showrunner named Don Belisario who had done everything from Quantum Leap to I mean, he's done it all. And God bless the guy because he doesn't put up with any bullshit. They flew people into set to have a discussion about my hair. And when he found out...
it is a new wonder of the world.
Well, I'm supposed to be a conservative Supreme Court clerk. I guess they expected me to look like maybe a Donald Trump Jr., Addams Family sort of kind of character. But he was like, what are you doing? Let the goddamn hair be the way it is. Let's concentrate on the story. And it was really funny because it could be stupid like that. It could be quite literally stupid like that. Like your hair sticks up. People aren't going to forget it. And I hate to say these are distractions because they can't be distractions, but you have to be remembered. It's very hard to be remembered. And so I learned, I think, in little ways to do little things. And I think Jason even said this recently in some interview. I don't remember. He goes, because he directed me in that commercial. Yeah. He said, a lot of people don't realize that when I work with Joe does all these little things. And it's not until you get into the editing room that you have all these little things that he's done. There's these funny little looks, you know, even when he's not talking and stuff, and great things to cut to. And so that helps. So that would be my suggestion for any actors, guest stars, recurrents, even regulars, is to, be distinct in your choices, be clear in your choices, and try to be remembered.
That's it.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's obsessed with being good. I don't know what being good means. There's so many good actors. There are a lot of good actors. Yeah.
So and not all with as cool hair. So I was like, what's it doing? Just leave it alone. Dude, whatever it does, it's doing it now.
I'm just happy I have hair. Because at my age, there's a lot of people that don't even have hair.
That's true.
So, yeah.
I want to speak to you real quick about the Guinness commercial. Paul Brickler asks, did you enjoy doing it with Jason? And can you tell us more about that whole thing? Because that was a dream of yours, wasn't it, to be in a Guinness commercial? Or am I hearing
that was Jason's dream.
That was Jason's dream. Oh. Jason's
dream was to be in a Guinness commercial or inside the keg of a Guinness.
Oh my God. Tell us about this.
No, you got to remember that I come from a family that has been brewing beer for many generations.
That's why I thought it would be your dream. That's why I crisscrossed them.
No, it's the opposite. Had my dad been alive and Anheuser-Busch not bought, sold, and pillaged a few years earlier, I wouldn't have been able to do a Guinness commercial in good conscience. When I grew up, my father, if I drank anything other than Budweiser, which is the beer he made, he would knock it out of my hands. He would go to restaurants and he would offer to buy everybody there not drinking Budweiser, replace their beers, give them a fresh Budweiser, I'll pay for it.
Wow.
That's how passionate he was about beer making. And, that's because his great grandfather had founded this company and they were very passionate about the product. So Guinness was a little bit of a shock. It would not have gone down well. As it is, no family members are there at the brewery anymore, and there was a hostile takeover. And I think we all grew up with the wrong concept that somehow with the lineage, it was our brewery. We had cousins that were still running the brewery. And as it turned out, we own very little of the brewery. I think Warren Buffett basically reminded us that like we didn't really have much of the brewery. It was a publicly traded company, and there were people that just owned way more than we did. And step out of the way, we're selling your brewery, and you know, a lot of people went into depression on that. My dad had mercifully passed away a year or two earlier, and I think he would have been heartbroken to have seen that happen. And he certainly would have been heartbroken to see me in a Guinness commercial.
I stand corrected.
But of course I had fun. Of course I had fun. You know, it was Andrew, Brian Mendoza, who's a great friend, and obviously Momoa, who's one of my closest friends. And it was a way to go to New Zealand and have fun and do things. And that's exactly what we did. And it was a blast. And by the way, the Guinness people, I think Jason goes, "Hey, Flanigan, where are you?" And the Guinness people were like, "Oh, we need to change his name." They were like, "Why? I mean, Flanigan's pretty damn Irish. Let's keep that name." I don't know, but he convinced them to keep the name.
Better.
And
yeah.
And, you know, look, everybody who works with Jason pretty much will tell you he has an infectious kind of embrace of situations, a certain joy. And, you know, he grabs people and he's having fun. And it's almost impossible not to have fun with Jason. And so we had a great time. Yeah.
Awesome, man. We were talking a bit about, do we have a few more minutes?
Sure.
Okay. We were talking a bit, I do agree with you about the characters just working right out of the gate from the pilot. The interesting thing is that there wouldn't be Ronan without Ford departing from the show. And Rainbow is someone I consider a friend, and it's one of those things where it's just like, it's so damn frustrating to me to this point because A, I love that we got Ronan, but B, it sucks that we lost Aiden Ford. And I never have spoken with you about finding out about that and just dealing with the fact that this is someone who, this is a person you care about as well, departed the show.
Well, Rainbow is a class act, and I consider him a good friend, and I still stay in touch with him. And he's just a lovely human being. And he handled it much better than I would have handled it. But what you got to remember is that there were a number of people fired. And I was upset by every one of those. And they were, with the exception of one, they told me I had learned about all these things after they fired them.
Okay.
And one of them, I was technically being told that they had not fired them yet. And then I tried to go about convincing them, bad idea, don't do it. The audience loves them. Don't do it. We need that person. And then they go, well, sort of too late. We already did. So there was this whole feeling that like, I was like, well, I'm an actor. I'm not a producer. I'm not an employer. I'm not a boss. I'm, and many times viewed as simply an employee. And so I only have X amount of pull. And I was really upset that Rainbow got left. And it also became clear to me that nobody really cared what I thought. So, which wasn't like heartbreaking. I've always known the hierarchical structure of things. So then they sent me to LA to read for the new characters. And that's when it became real that, Rainbow was going to be leaving. But I will say that we got Rainbow back on the show for I don't know how many episodes, but that was also nice.
Yeah, there were a few in season 2, and there was a great Martin Garrow wrote him into the introduction of season 5, which was a great. Just it's there for a beat, and it's perfect. Yeah, there's unfinished business in that man's heart.
And Martin, in my view, Martin was one of the best writers on that show. I think he was one of the most talented writers on the show, and he had a good handle on humor and everything else. And so having him as the showrunner of the new show, I think is a good sign. Yeah.
Awesome. Last question for you, 095 Lana. What is your impression of, we kind of already answered this a little bit in the beginning, of fandom today compared to what it was when the show ended? And what do you foresee for fandom in the future? Its growth, its contraction? What are your thoughts?
Well, I'm not exactly sure. I could never tell you the evolution of the fandom when we ended and the fandom now. I am pleasantly surprised that the fandom when we left the show has not dissipated. That's the shocking thing. And I try to tell people this. Sometimes I get invited to sign autographs in different conventions around the world. And a lot of them, promoters will be like, when they're trying to chisel you down to like no money, they go, wow, it's such an old show. And I'm like, yeah, I guess it is. And that's what's shocking is that I'm signing more people.
Yeah, because all the people that you started with, well, they now had kids, and those kids want their own autographs.
And the kids are watching it. And so I'm surprised. Now, I am, along with Jason, being the only 2 Americans on that show. Me and Jason Momoa were the only 2 Americans on the show. And we're members of the Screen Actors Guild. We get residuals. And most of the time on all the other series I've done, you get residuals. They start pretty high, and then they just go off a cliff until you get pennies for checks. Stargate it kind of went down, and then it just spiked back up. And the residuals are higher than they've normally been. And that's an indication that it's running more than it has in the past. And I can't explain that. So the fandom is clearly there. The fandom, ironically, is creating new generations of fans. And maybe like, how that show Suits and things like that, became popular again. It's conceivable that, that type of thing could happen. I think you can't quite prove it, but I wouldn't be surprised if a number of Jason Momoa fans from other projects rediscovered Stargate Atlantis because he was in it. That's a possibility.
I think that's a factor.
Yeah, it's not quantifiable, but anecdotally, I'd say there's definitely some influence there. And then also there's a lack of good, true blue science fiction TV shows out there. Not a lot of them. That mix in action and the whole bit, there's not a lot of them.
Yeah, I think you guys hold a very special place in pop culture. And I think that you're going to be around for a while. So, Joe.
Be around in the digital heaven.
Yeah, but you'll still be suave, and that hair will still be doing its thing. So, Joe, thank you so much for spending some time today. It means a lot to have you back. I'd love to have you back later this year. It just meant a lot to have you.
You bet. And listen, I hope that the fans really do get what they want in the new show. For sure. They deserve it. They've stuck with everybody, stuck with me, they've stuck with everybody, and they deserve their loyalty to be paid off. So anyways, good talking to you, David.
It's good to see you, man. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the show on this, and please stay well. Bye-bye, sir. Thank you. Joe Flanigan, Major John Sheppard, Colonel John Sheppard, excuse me, on, thank God he's gone, whew, on Stargate Atlantis. My name is David Reed. You're watching the Stargate Oral History Project. Erica Strum was the one who asked, was Joe as upset as we were when Rainbow got taken off the show? I apologize, Erica. I missed that. I was scrolling down. I was like, she asked that question. I'm going to give her credit for it, even though I also had the same nugget, because we had never talked about Rainbow. So that was awesome to have him back. I have to give a couple of shout outs before we go to Bryce Ibrec, I-B-R-E-C. You can find him on social media. He created our opening sequence today, flying over Atlantis. And then to James over at Venture Pictures, who created what you're about to see, the closing credits here. And you can find him on social media, Venture, I think venture.pictures. He's done a ton of Stargate stuff, Stargate Eye Candy, as I call it, and he's going to be coming over to Dial the Gate here pretty soon to discuss that. We are going to try to, am I going to say this aloud? Oh, we're going to try and do 20 shows in 20 days to open up season 6. That was one. So let's see what happens. Most of them are pre-recorded. We have a ton of stuff that we shot in Vancouver that really excited to share with y'all. Christopher Judge, I rescheduled him a little bit later because it's going to need a little bit more retooling. He's going to be up at 2 p.m. Pacific time. We talked this morning. The man looks good. Tomorrow, Stargate Production Art, James C.D. Robbins, February the 8th at 10 a.m. And then our first pre-recorded episode from Vancouver, it is going to be a roundtable discussion between Tom Macbeth and Jacqueline Samuda and Garwin Sanford as they talk about their careers, their characters, and acting. That's going to be February the 8th at 12 noon Pacific time. February the 9th, we're going to talk about this little Stargate Command light-up logo that I've got. We're going to take a look at a Stargate props and costumes exhibition from Germany on February the 10th. I need to double check those times there. I've got to check that out on the back end. So I'm just going to stop there because God knows what else is wrong on that page. We have a little bit more business to go through. Just a second here for me. Where is that file? Bryce for the opening sequence. My tremendous thanks to my moderators for making this episode possible today. Anthony is doing the chapters. Kevin was our mod captain, and Enigma, our mod co-captain. I appreciate you guys manning the store and make sure that everyone behaves themselves in there, because I could not do the show without you guys. And a special shout out to Tilamakos Kompanos, who has been working tirelessly with me to build a new video infrastructure on my side here on my tools. I was spinning 10 plates the last time I talked with Joe for episode 4, and now like 9 of those plates are automated now. It's did I say I was spinning 10? Yeah, 9 of those are automated now. It's like this, it has become so much easier thanks to him, and it means a lot to have him. And he's also helped me launch Dial the Gate's 3rd YouTube channel. As of today, we had Wormhole Extremists launch a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, and today we're launching a 3rd called The Daily Gate. And you can type in YouTube The Daily Gate. I wanted to create a channel that is just my favorite Stargate clips, my favorite scenes from the franchise. And so my hope is to release one a day for the foreseeable future in there, and dress them up a little bit, make them look good, make it look, because there's a lot of clip channels out there on YouTube, but I didn't just want to create just another one. So it's nice at this point. I think we're ready to expand a little bit more, but there's a ton heading your way this season. Thanks again to Joe for joining us for this episode, and stick around for Christopher Judge coming soon, and keep your eye on dialthegate.com, because all kinds of new Stargate content is heading your way. My name is David Reed for Dial the Gate. I appreciate you tuning in, and I will see you on the other side.